Got it.
Hello and welcome to the Songwriting Connection. Today we have a fabulous guest with us. I am super excited to introduce you to Rick Bell. He is the gig coach. He is Rockin Rick Bell and has been a public speaker, author, performer for over the last 3 decades. He earned his name Rock as a professional kickboxer and decorated police officer in his 20s. And the nickname became Rockin Rick with his natural talent for music. It led him to a long career as an award-winning vocalist, guitarist, songwriter, and entertainer. I am telling you, Rick Bell has been through a lot, and I am super excited as a Christian today to introduce you to him because at birth, his mother did not want him. He was rejected. And then for a long time, he was an atheist. And then he had people come and minister to him, and he actually had a God experience and like a near death experience and saw the Lord and what he had for him. And isn't that just like God to send people in our paths? We don't even know. And then they bring us full photo. He is a writer. He has a book that he authored, Boxing Blindfolded with Demons. And it is 5-star rating. Got to get that on Amazon. And he lives in Austin, Texas today, and he started the Gig Coach podcast in 2008, and he is giving back. He has workshops for performers and offers courses, and I am just super excited to have you here today, Rick. Thank you so much.
Well, Pamela, it is my pleasure to be here. Now, the Rockin Rick, the rock story. A lot of people say, no, there's no way you were a boxer. I'm going to share this with you. This was my karate days. I was a champion kickboxer.
Oh my
Let me pull
God.
this up for you and show you right quick. That is me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was me in my mean days, my fighting days. That's
That's
what I did.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the old me, and then as you mentioned, I was born with a gift for music. Music was always just easy for me. It's not hard. So when I was a kid, because I was given up for adoption, my mother was an unwed 16-year-old Catholic schoolgirl. And she obviously, couldn't keep me, didn't want to keep me. Her family had her give me up for adoption. So that I had a sense of rejection. I didn't know, a lot of times we grow up not knowing what's going on with us emotionally and those driving forces behind us. But I had a sense of rejection that caused me to want to prove that I was good at something, that I could do something. I
Mhm.
always wanted to prove to the parents that adopted me because they were dysfunctional. They were nice people. They were good people. And they weren't poor. They had some money because you can't adopt kids without having some money. But we didn't know that. They adopted me and they adopted my sister. We were my sister, we're not blood related, but she looked just like me, but she came from a totally different family. They adopted us and they always wanted us to believe we were poor growing up for whatever reason. We lived in this beautiful big brick house. My mother came from a wealthy family. Uh, and we had all this, the things, but they always told us we were poor. So we grew up thinking we were poor. But I wanted to prove to my dad and my mom that I was good. So I picked up a guitar. Actually, the first thing I started playing was the piano. My grandmother, who they lived next door to us in a big house, she had a grand piano in her living room. So I would sit down at about 5 or 6 years old and start playing melodies that I would hear. I would hear a melody and I could play it because I had a very good ear.
Mhm.
So as time went on, I saw this television show. Now I'm dating myself, but in the 1960s, I was 5 or 6, 7 years old, and there was this show that came on called The Monkees.
Oh,
They they played
I love
guitar
them.
and they were
Yeah.
in a band. Well, I knew I saw that's what I want to do. I want to be one of those guys. So my dad's brother, my uncle Billy, they were pretty close in age. They went to World War II together. But Uncle Billy was a hopeless alcoholic. He drank constantly. Now he held down a job and did all that, but he was always broke, always out of money. So he would borrow money, quote unquote, borrow from my dad, $10 here, $15 there. So my dad said, well, I'm going to have some collateral because you didn't pay me back that last $10 I loaned you. So Uncle Billy brought over his electric guitar that was a Sears and Roebuck electric guitar in a case, and the case was the amplifier. In the old days, they had these things. You literally plugged the case in, had a little speaker that size in it, and it was an electric guitar. He left it at our house for probably a year because he couldn't come up with the $10 to pay my dad back, of course. So I dug that thing out of the closet and plugged it in and got it and started making sounds on it and figured out if I moved my fingers on the frets, it would make different notes. So I literally started there and taught myself how to play the guitar and wanted to be great at it because I had that thing again, that rejection thing, and everything I did, I wanted to excel at it. So I would sit in my bedroom endlessly in practice. Now I happen to have a gift for music. You know, that was one of the things I discovered later in life, that I had what the college professor music told me I had a genius level music IQ. Well,
Wow.
I mean, there'd been hints of that through my life
Mhm.
because I could sing really, really well. I didn't want to sing. All I wanted to do was play the guitar,
Mhm.
but I could sing. And my third grade school teacher, music teacher, called for a parent conference with my mother. And I thought, oh God, this is it. This is the end of my life because I've done something where she's calling mom and it's going to be bad because I acted up a little bit in class. I was a kind of a prankster. So I thought it's done. I'm in the third grade and it's already over and I haven't even started. I'll never forget the day I was sitting there, you know, sweating bullets, and my mother shows up out in the hall, and this teacher says, Ricky, they call me Ricky, you need to come out in the hall. Your music teacher and your mother want to speak to you. Oh no. Go out in the hall, and I'm thinking, whatever it is, I'm just going to have to weather the storm and somehow explain this away. I get out there and I'm looking, and the music teacher says to my mother, Mrs. Bell, you understand that Ricky is a musical genius. I said, what? What does that mean? She said, what? What? He said, music. And the music teacher said, yes, he has the ability to, at his age, to hear notes and melodies and play them and mimic them. And his voice, he has near perfect pitch, and he's only, you know, in the third grade. He's
Uh,
9 years old.
yeah.
She said, I encourage you to get him in music lessons immediately because he could be a professional musician. But at the
Mhm.
third grade, my mother says, well, okay, like what should I do? She said, well, put him in piano lessons. That's the good foundational instrument.
Mhm.
Mother signed me up the next week for piano lessons. And it was a kind of a cool thing, but a strange thing. In a music store there, it was a group lesson. Like there were 8 people in the class, and we sat at these electronic keyboards or a Fender
Oh,
Rhodes, if you know what a
yeah.
keyboard, Fender Rhodes keyboard. And there were 4 on each side, and then the teacher sat at the end. And these people, they would put our little sheet music in front of us, and we would play the notes and the deal. So I figured out if I could hear what the other people were playing, I would play what they were playing. And I couldn't read. I didn't want to read that.
Yeah.
So I sat there and played by ear for a couple of weeks. About the third week, the teacher caught on, and she took my book and she changed the page, and I didn't know. And I'm sitting and playing the same thing, looking at the page. She realized I was playing by ear and not reading. So she told my mother that he's not reading, so there's no sense in having him in my class. So she basically kicked me out of piano class
Oh no.
at 9 years old. But what I really wanted to do was be in the guitar lesson class.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the only people that taught guitar in my town were hippies, right? My dad wasn't that fond of hippies. They had hair down, you know, halfway down their back, but man, they could play some Doobie Brothers and Grand Funk and
Yeah.
Santana and all that music that I loved from the 70s. They could teach me the licks, the guitar licks. So I started taking guitar lessons from a hippie. I didn't really learn much, but man, we jammed. We would sit back in that music room and just jam. But because I had that ability, you know, to play music, it allowed me to be in bands at a very young age. I started a band when I was like 12, playing lead guitar and singing. And then by 14, I was in a grown up, what I call grown up band, earning money, playing music, earning a lot of money.
Mhm.
Um, and for a kid that lives at home, not having any bills in the 1970s and making $100 a week, A lot of people didn't make $100 a month in those days. I was
Yeah.
making $100 a week. I bought myself a Trans Am, one of those Smokey and the Bandit cars, just like I wanted
Yes.
one. I bought one. I bought myself a Good Time van at the same time. Now I've got a Trans Am and a Good Time van,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, I'll just get a motorcycle too. So I bought all this stuff on the money that I made
Yeah.
playing. So I just figured this is all I ever want to do with my life
Mm.
is play this guitar and sing. And I was single-minded. That was my focus because I was good at it, and people gave me accolades. They applauded me, and it was my identity, you understand.
Mm.
But I got, that became my total identity, and the sex, drugs, rock and roll thing. Yeah, but you can leave the drugs out. I never cared about doing drugs, but all the rest, yeah. And that was kind of the life I lived until I was 21 years old. And then I had this encounter that with these strangers, and they were Christians, which I thought was the kookiest thing in the world. Christians, it's Jesus like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny and all that. So that was my predisposition. But these strangers, they said, "Can we pray for you?" And this took about an hour. But yeah, long story short, they put their hands on me and prayed, and I had a near-death experience. I'm totally healthy, 21-year-old kickboxer. I'm very healthy.
Yeah.
Middle of the day, stone sober, but I saw this white light, and I had, if you read the Bible or something, the Apostle Paul had a road to Damascus experience.
Yes.
That was what it was for me. It was a road to Damascus, and my whole life changed. My personality, I didn't have to change it. It changed.
Yeah.
When I woke up from that near death thing, I was out for like 45 minutes seeing the white light. When I came to from that, everything about me was different. My personality, everything. So, and that's who I am today. Now, there's a big distance between that 21-year-old and, the 65-year-old today. There are a
Yeah.
lot of things happened, and I've grown through that and learned. But really, and when it's all said and done, you have to be who you were created to be. Wasted, really, I call it wasted. It probably wasn't because it all led to learning this, but it was some hard lessons to learn. I didn't know that I had this spirit of rejection on me. I didn't know what that was. Caused me to choose poorly in relationships. I know some of you can relate to that. I didn't have a model of a healthy relationship. I came from a dysfunctional family. I was given up for adoption and adopted by two alcoholics, not one alcoholic, two. The therapist told me I was raised by double. It's called a double alcoholic home. Wow.
Um,
And my mother died when I was 25 years old, dropped dead from drinking at our family business. Mother and dad owned a very successful business. And my dad committed suicide
oh
a
my
year and a half
goodness.
later with mother
Wow.
gone. They were inseparable. They were together their whole life, basically. So it kind of set me up to be messed up. All right. And I always had this burning thing to write songs and to write music. I didn't really know how. I knew how to play the guitar and sing, but I didn't know how you write a song. And I had a brilliant, he was a newspaper editor, became a friend of mine in my hometown, East Texas. He was a writer and a really sharp guy. He was older than me, maybe 15 or 20 years older. And he called me one day and he said, I need a music. He was a real outgoing, gregarious guy. He was one of the movers and the shakers in the community. You have those guys. Everybody loved him, newspaper editor. He said, I need you to come and be the music director we're doing a musical for the Lions Club. The Lions Club is a civic organization that puts on a show every year, and they raise funds, a little local community thing. He said, I need you to be the music director. And I said, I can't do that. I said, I don't know how to read music. I don't know the first thing about giving people charts. He said, sure you can. You can learn. Come on, you're it. Be there at 6 o'clock tonight. And that guy is the one who encouraged me and said, why don't you write some songs? I said, I don't know how to write. He said, yeah, just like you didn't know how to be a music director, but you ended up being a great music director and put on a great show. Why don't you write songs? I said, well, I guess I could. But see, it was that little voice on your shoulder, that critic that always says to you, you can't do that. You're
Mhm.
not good enough to do. You don't know enough about that. Who are you? No one wants to hear what you have to say. So you have to learn to quiet that critic. And having a guy like that newspaper editor, it really encouraged me because I wanted to prove to him I could do it. See, I
Wow.
always had to have that person in my life that I could please. That it's a complicated thing, but some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I sat down and I started writing songs, and a weird thing happened. It was like I turned on a spigot, right? And the music started flowing out of me. I, s- I wrote 50 songs in, I don't know. And I'm telling you, when you first start writing songs, you really don't know how to write songs. You mimic what's on the radio. I was doing popular stuff, and because I had that musical ability, I could hear and I understood theory. I'd learned a little bit about music theory. Mother made me go to college, and I said all I wanted to do was study music. So she said, "Well, go study music, but you're going to college." So I went for a couple of semesters, and the only two things I didn't like about college were going to class and studying. Other than that, I loved the whole experience. Those two things, eliminate that, and it was so
Well, the
I
good thing is you going through all of this. I mean, you've had people at different points speak into your life, and even though while you had that little critic, and I know people are out there because I'm the same. Like when I would listen to the people talk about how they wrote songs, I'm like, I hear that. I hear like all the words, all the music. I hear all that, but I love how you're talking about how you started out. Just me, I started out writing poetry as songs, and maybe some people listening do that. But I think up to this point, which I'm going to let you continue, but I want people to know no matter what situation you're in, no matter what you have been through. Like you said, you've got to be who God created you to be. It's in there. He's sewn it into our DNA and it is going to come out.
yeah,
So
it's going to come
what
out.
exactly, once we start diving into that, that's when we can just see the hand of God in our life.
Well, it's in you, and it's like you say, it's going to come out one way or another. Now, listen to me.
Yes.
It's either going to come out in you being creative and sharing this gift, or it's going to come out in depression and you not quite feeling right about where you are in life, what you're doing in life, what is your life, what am I doing here? My job's not fulfilling me, or that little nagging thing that just something's not right. There's an old country song that says, "There ain't nothing wrong, there just ain't nothing right." And that's the thing with creative people, performers, writers, songwriters. You have to get that out. Now, the world is not going to understand or support it. Your immediate family, they're going to think, "Oh yeah, yeah, you go off in the corner and do your little songwriting." And they can't connect on that level unless that gift is in them. Then they understand it is a drive. It's not a choice. You wake up one day and say, "I think I'm going to be a songwriter." Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get a guitar and learn to. No, it's like something, you start writing poetry a lot of times. You have to write. You have to get these things out. But if you don't do that, you're not going to be fulfilled as a human being.
Right.
Okay. You're put on this earth with certain gifts and certain tasks that you are expected to fulfill in your limited time here. And again, I've done this for a long time, and I've been coaching people in thegigcoach.com for a long, long time. And I've seen and I've been able to teach people to do what I do full time solo singer and performer, and I make big bucks. And I'm not bragging. I'm saying I've got where God wanted me to be. See, I didn't get there in a week. I didn't get there in a month, but I took a step, line upon line and precept upon precept.
Mhm.
That's what I teach other people how to do, to not waste years, because we're only given a finite amount of time to do things. And I teach you shortcuts and how to get there, because look, you're not going to be able to communicate and affect your message, which is your music, your songs, your story, whatever you do, unless you are in front of people.
Yeah.
You can't count on, well, I'll just have a YouTube channel. Do you know how many YouTube videos are released every minute? It's something like 1.5 million a minute.
Yeah,
So
it's what.
it's too crowded a marketplace. What you have to do is go out onto the highways and the byways and compel them, and just go out and be you.
Mm,
You have to go out, take what you have, take your art. And yeah, there may be one or two people in your audience to start with. It won't stay that way.
yeah.
If you learn how to entertain a crowd, you can write your own ticket, just like I've done. I
Mm,
came from my martial arts thing. Well, that led to I became the president of a martial arts corporation, and
wow.
we had about 1,000 martial arts schools in the United States. And
Wow.
I was the president of that company because I knew how to write and create, and I understood the business. I had a mind for, well, this is how you teach karate to a 6-year-old. This is what you do. So I came from that marketing world
Mhm.
into what I should have been doing the whole time was what I do now, which is the music and being fulfilled with that. But you have to follow that, follow your passion. It's not easy to start out because you don't know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing when I wrote those first 50 songs. But you know what? I had a talent for songwriting, but I didn't understand what the word prosody meant, how to make the words fit the melody. I didn't understand what verse, chorus, form, song form, A, B, A, A. I didn't understand that. I was writing on instinct and what I heard on the radio. Ironically, my friend, I told you, I think I mentioned he played drums for Johnny Paycheck. I may not have told you that. He was the manager of Rascal Flatts, but he moved to Nashville in the early 80s to be the drummer on the road for a guy named Johnny Paycheck, who was a country artist, had the big song, Take This Job and Shove It.
Yeah.
Well, that was Paycheck. So Doug lived in that. Doug was my friend.
Yeah.
His name was Doug Nichols. He passed away actually, but he managed Rascal Flatts. You can look it up. He was the manager that broke them, along with another one that broke out in 2000. That's another story. I'll tell you how that came. But anyway, I would go to Nashville with Doug, and Doug lived on pork and beans. I mean, you live a starving life in Nashville as a musician. He played 2 gigs a night. I think he played from 5 until 9 at one gig. Then he went from 10 until 4 at another gig. This was every day.
Yeah.
I mean, exhausted, but he was in Nashville. So I went there with my 50 songs. I said, well, we'll just see if anyone wants these songs. Because Doug, when you live in Nashville, the reason you live there is to know people, you network. So Doug knew all these publishers and stuff. First one he took me to, looked at all my songs. I played them, didn't, um, he played half, some of them, not all of them. He said, I'll take them all.
Wow.
What? That first trip, and I don't think I took 50. I think I took about 20 something. I didn't take all my 50 catalog to
Yeah.
him. It was like 20 of my best ones. I wanted, he signed all of them that first time. I
Wow.
thought, wow, I can do. I mean, I was on cloud nine. My friend Doug said, wow, that's really good. And I said, the next question I had was, when can I get paid for these songs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Important thing if you're going to Nashville, it costs money to do that.
Mm,
And here's what I learned that changed what I was doing, really put me here. He said, well, what we have to do now is we have to pitch these songs to recording artists. And if they like the song, they'll put it on hold. They'll put a hold on it. And I said, okay, so does that mean I get paid? They said, no, that just means that you're not able to have another person record it because they have a hold on it.
uh,
I said, okay, so when do I get the paycheck? They said, well, if they have a hold, that can last from 6 months to a year. Usually they don't last longer than that because the
well,
artist will release the hold so you can pitch to someone else. But they put it on hold a lot of times. I didn't know, to keep other artists from getting it and recording it. They're not going to record it. They just don't want someone else to do it. So he said, if they choose to record your song, that I'm, signing it with him today. He said, 6 or 8 months, if they make the decision to put your song on their next album, they will schedule it and record it. Now, from the time it's recorded, you're looking at about a year before the album is released. That's
wow.
like it's like 2 years. He said, yeah, yeah. And so he explained this to me, and I said, so you're saying I couldn't make any money for 2 years off these songs? He said, yeah, that's how this works. He said, now you can get a writing deal working for a publishing company, making $50 a week, something like that.
Mhm.
I made more than that, playing guitar with a coffee can on the street. So he said to me, this is very, very important. It's part of that God thing where he directs you.
Yeah.
Because I was really discouraged. I'm writing these songs and I want to put my whole heart into it, but I can't wait 2 years to get in. And really, it's a lot longer than that. That's just if you're lucky enough and they actually cut your song. The average time, my friend told me, you got to be in Nashville 10 years before
Wow.
you really start to have success. And I believe that, knowing him and following all of that stuff. 10 years. So the publisher told me, you know what you ought to consider doing? You ought to consider writing jingles for radio and television because you have a real good sense of melody. And
Mm.
I can tell that in your writing. Why don't you look into jingles? Jingles. I've never thought about that before. Just so happened that in Dallas, Texas, that was the jingle capital of America. You think
Oh,
it's New York. Yeah, Dallas, Texas. They had these 3 or 4 jingle houses, we call them. These were big time operations. Went to I'll tell you the name. It was Toby Arnold and Associates, TAA.
wow.
Went to TAA, and the creative director, there was a genius guy, Italian, crazy cat. He loved my writing and he hired me on the spot that day to write. So I started writing jingles for radio and television, and you get paid instantly with jingles. But I could write because I knew my instrument and I could sing.
Yeah.
So you would go into a client meeting. The reason they loved me, we could go into a client pitch, and this client was buying a $50,000, $100,000 advertising package for a radio station or television. And I could go in and, well, here's your concept. Here's what you want. How about this? And I could play them a song live. And they would think, wow, that's kind of cool. I like that. Well, that thing ended up selling a lot of jingles, that my ability to do that. So I did jingles for several years. And
Wow.
I got tired of traveling because I had to go into different markets. I would have to go to Philadelphia one week and Los Angeles the next and Phoenix the next and Chicago. I got tired of all of that, but I wrote jingles and it was something I was very good at because of that melodic thing I had. Growing up, my mom and dad were big band fans. That's all they listened to. They met at a big band concert just after World War II. My dad was in the Navy and came home 1946. They met on a blind date, and they only played big band music in the house. I grew up with that. And mother loved musicals like The Sound of Music and Oklahoma and The King and I, those things.
Yeah.
So she would play those. Well, guess what? The reason those musicals were successful was because of the melodies of those songs that get in your head and you can't get them out. So
Mhm.
I was schooled in melody and
Yeah.
not even knew it.
From the
But that's
beginning.
how my writing always ended up being melodic.
Yeah.
And that's what commercial stuff likes melodic.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily, like some strange abstract sound.
Yeah.
They didn't back then. They made a day, but then they wanted something melodic that it would get in their ear and they would hum it. So
So I
that
have
was,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question for you. So I want to go back to where you're in Nashville and you're going through all the steps. Now that was then. Is it still like a 10-year process today?
If not longer. It's a different business today. Okay.
Yeah.
The business of music came about in the 1920s when, now this is how it worked, when the mob found out
Mm.
they could take Frank Sinatra and record him on this little black disc called a record for this thing called a phonograph. Now, at a Frank Sinatra concert, they could sell $1,000 worth of tickets. But if they had a Frank Sinatra little round thing called a record, they could sell $1 million worth of those.
Mm.
So the mob said, we are getting in the record business. So they're the ones that created the modern record business. Simply now they ran it, but there were some legitimate players in there. But the mob is always looking about the profit potential. So they saw that you could sell a record. That carried on all the way through until they got the big bonanza, and that was this thing called a CD.
Oh, wow.
Now to produce a record cost $1, let's just say $1 per record, and they would sell that for $10. Well, that would only give them $9 profit.
Mhm.
A CD they could produce for 3 pennies, and
Wow.
they could sell that thing for $19. Do the math.
Yeah.
So they had this bonanza of these things called CDs. That was what drove the money in the music business, selling a physical product.
Mhm.
And concerts and all that and radio airplay. Yeah, they got some of the artists, they get mechanicals, is what it's called for
Yeah.
that. But selling a product, when streaming came along, selling that product went away.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, the music industry was faced with, how do we make money? You can't make money on, you have 1 million streams on YouTube and you get 26 cents or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's where the whole Napster thing, that's when they started suing everyone because that income stream went away. Now, because that income stream is gone, people had to find new ways to do this whole music business thing. So the independents came along and the home studio. People all
Mhm.
of a sudden could get recording equipment that previously they would have to pay 60 or 100 or $200 an hour in a studio to record their songs. They can now do it at home. They could buy microphones like this, top dollar microphone. They could get whatever they need and set up a home studio that sounded as good as $1 million studio.
Mhm.
That changed the game also because there was a flood of new music coming.
Mhm.
People could produce and put their music out online.
Yeah.
They could publish their own stuff. So all of a sudden you had, say, 100 songs a week being released. That went to 50,000. Now think about the law of supply and demand.
Mhm.
When there's more in the market, the demand gets diminished.
Yeah.
So it's harder and harder and harder to cut through with music.
Mhm.
With hit songs, they figured out, first of all, Nashville, get this in your mind, the music business sells refrigerators. Forget about selling songs. They sell stuff. They sell item. That's all it is. It's a factory that makes widgets and they sell those widgets.
Mhm.
They're a business conglomerate. They don't care about the artist. The artist is the refrigerator that they sell. So they build this whole business based on, well, last year's refrigerator model was real popular, so let's copy that for this year and just may put another paint job on it.
Mhm.
That's why the artists nowadays, as you see, most of them, the male artists in country music at least, are models off of GQ magazine. They pick them that way on purpose. Why are there not many female artists doing these concerts like the male artists?
Yeah.
Because women buy the music in country music. They're the listeners. They do the demographics.
Mhm.
75% of the music consumed is by females.
Mhm.
Females like men singing.
Yeah.
That's what the record company discovered.
Mhm.
So it's just a business.
Mhm.
We have this passionate, our art is our art and it's our baby. And it's, music business doesn't see it that way. It's just another refrigerator for them to sell. And is it going to be a good refrigerator? Is it, we're going to follow the formula the way we made this last refrigerator with the ice maker here and da da da. So all the music in Nashville now is formulaic.
Wow.
The way they write songs is different. If you haven't noticed, look at hit songs and the writer credits. It used to be one or two people would write a song, three at the most in a
Mhm.
co-write. These hit songs, especially the pop ones, they'll have 14 writers listed.
I
You
have
notice that?
noticed that. I have noticed additional, like more than two or three,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
13, 14.
Yes.
And each one of those contributes a line.
Mm.
Not they contribute a line that they
Wow.
have crafted because the hit songs became all about one hook line after another. In the
Mhm.
old days, you'd write a song and you'd have one
One
hook
hook.
in it,
Yep.
and the rest of the chorus and
Mhm.
the bridge, it would all be about supporting the hook.
Mhm.
If you listen to songs now, every line is a hook that could be its own song written about. but they put those hook after hook,
Mhm.
and every time you hear it, you go, God, that's a great line. And then another one follows. You go, that's an even better line.
I
He's
know.
writing this stuff. It's because they
That's
have all these writers that come together and they,
yeah,
well, here's a line I came up with. Let's
yeah.
make this one work.
Well, that's a
So
good segue into what I want to talk about, which is your gigcoach.com and how that you help performers in our last few minutes that we have. I
sure.
want to hear about that. And also, you have a creator of the Entertainers University. Is that different than the gig coach, or do you have it
It,
all in
it
the same place?
Yeah, it's inside the gigcoach.com. I
Okay.
made the gigcoach.com so that people could start. Look, they don't have a clue how to actually do this any more
Right.
than I did when I started.
Me.
Quickly in 2008, I was in that martial arts financial services business where we
Yeah.
managed all the schools. The financial crash of 2008 came, and
Mhm.
that wiped out that business. So at that time, I was going through a divorce. It was a horrible time. And I said, I'm just going to play music. I'm just going to go solo. I had a band that was working on weekends, successful, but I knew I couldn't make a living with a band. I
Mhm.
had to go solo like some people I'd seen out in Las Vegas doing. So I started this solo act and the thing took off. It worked. And all of a sudden I was making, I'm telling you, I was making as much money as I was as the president of a corporation. Just doing solo gig. Well, you're talking about $200 or $300 an hour
Yeah.
to play these gigs.
Yeah.
And I had all I could, I was turning down gigs. So my friend, Doug Nichols, who was the manager of Rascal Flats at the time, he had just helped break Rascal Flats and they were all over everywhere.
Mhm.
Doug called me to Nashville. He said, you know, you're the most successful guy I've ever seen at doing this solo show. You figured it out. He
Yeah.
said, would you consider teaching others how to do it? I thought, yeah, I'm a teacher. That's what martial arts was about. I was a teacher.
Mhm.
He said, good, we're going to do this thing. I want you to come up with something because I have money, people. At the time, he was making millions of dollars with Rascal Flats. If you understand how
Yeah.
much money he was involved, it's a
Mhm.
staggering amount.
Yeah.
And he said, I have all these names. He named them in Nashville. You would know who they were.
Yeah.
And they have this money they want to give you to do the what would become the gigcoach.com, the
Mhm.
entertainers university, where you teach others where do they start from scratch?
Exactly.
Do
Yeah.
you have to be a great guitar player? No. Do you have to be a phenomenal perfect pitch singer? No.
Mm.
You have to learn how to do something I call a blended performance method, BPM.
Mhm.
That that's the whole crux of what I teach you how to do. Whatever talent level you have,
Mhm.
how you take that and craft it to where people want to hire you. They are starving for entertainment.
Mm.
Entertainment is not sitting on a stool with an acoustic guitar
Right.
playing songs.
Yeah.
There's 400 of those people within 10 miles of me right now. You can't compete with that because they'll play for free.
Yeah.
You're not going to be a free player because
Right.
people value what they pay for.
Mhm.
Now, you're going to be able to blend a show that's not just you playing and singing, blended with DJ music that you DJ
Mhm.
and track music. You do not have to play and accompany yourself. There are tracks available of every song, including, your originals.
Mhm.
That's a whole thing that we teach you how to do. But
Yeah.
then you perform with those tracks and you entertain people, but you have to learn how to do it. There's step by step how to market, how to talk to an agent. Do you want an agent? How to contact festivals, fairs. It's everything really from A to Z, starting from scratch, assuming you don't know anything. Because there are a lot of people who are baby boomers who are our age, who
Yeah.
are at retirement or whatever. And I help them start a whole nother career as an entertainer. Oh, well, hey, so what if could you use an extra 2 or 3 thousand a month? Just
Yes.
you can use that, right? Everyone, you can use an extra 1,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's easy to do if you
Mhm.
know how to do it with the skill set you have. You don't have to be a virtuoso musician or any of that. You be who you are. You may not even sing. I
Yeah.
can teach you how to host events and be very successful. So that's what the thegigcoach.com is about. It's a free thing to join and get involved. And then if you're a member of that, you can enroll in the Entertainers University, it's a paid thing,
Yeah.
but it's well worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth 100 times what is charged because
I'm
it's a
telling you.
money. They call it a business in a box. In
Mhm.
online teaching, they said, hey, no, you're charging way too cheap for this. You need to be charging like 5 grand. And I'm saying, I want to help people like
Right.
me. I
Yeah.
make it cost what basically at one gig would cost,
Yeah.
so they can afford it. Because look, at this stage of my life, I'm not I don't need a lot more money.
Yeah.
I've figured out how to do this, and the money comes and comes and comes. All this stuff behind me, all these guitars,
Yeah.
about 30 of them. Yeah, they ain't cheap. They're not those pawn shop guitars.
Yeah.
It's because I learned how to do this stuff. But so I want to help people at this stage in the game. You'll find out when you get old and gray like me, you don't care that much about stuff anymore or winning awards or any of that. You want to leave a mark. You want to help people.
Exactly.
So
Leave a
that's what
legacy.
I do with
Yeah, I
the
love that.
gigcoach.com. Yeah.
Yeah. That is so awesome. I'm so glad you took time out and I'm glad that you're giving back. I mean, that you want to leave a legacy. That's what I feel like I do. I think a lot of people in that age range do, and just share that knowledge, be a knowledge broker, whether whatever it is, whether it's music, writing, marketing. I love that you found out marketing sooner than later because that is one thing I wish I
Yeah.
had have learned a long time ago. I still don't know it. I'm still learning. So,
It's Pamela, it's everything, honey.
yes, it
It is
is.
everything. I'm gonna
It
share
is.
this right quick with you so we're
Yes.
keep talking about this and see my
And we
share.
thank everyone for joining today. And you can go to thegigcoach.com to connect with Rick Bell.
Yep.
He is amazing. Look, he's got his Entertainers University.
Yep. That's my
That's
logo
where,
thing. That's where you can go, thegigcoach.com, and
okay.
sign up. It's free to sign up. You get on our list, and
Yes.
then we'll communicate with you and coach you, literally coach you.
Yeah.
You can get as much coaching or as little coaching as you need or want. That's what it's set up to do. And I'm shifting more, Pamela, to doing this versus performing. I perform over 300 shows a year. That's a
Wow.
lot.
Wow.
That's because
That is a lot.
it's a lot because I've figured out how to do this where people want it. They
Yeah.
want it and they pay a lot for it. So I
Yeah.
try to choke that back by charging more, but they just pay it and they keep you coming
Yeah.
because they've got disposable income for
Right.
entertainment. That's what people
Makes
don't
them
understand.
happy. People are looking for that happiness. And we know, where true happiness comes from, like you were talking about, it's from within.
Yeah,
When
it
the
is.
Lord comes into our life, He works on us from inside out. And then
Yes,
all those fruit and all those gifts and talents that we have will just come out
they
in
will.
whatever form, whether it's music, movies, writing, books. It could be, teaching. So I thank you so much for taking your time today to be here with us. It has been such a joy and pleasure.
Well, it's been a pleasure for me. I met you and I was impressed with you. You just had a sweet spirit about you.
Oh,
And you meet a lot of people in the entertainment business, and you learn to read them
mm.
pretty quickly. And I saw in you someone that was genuine and had a real heart for helping people, and I appreciate that. There need to be a lot more like you
Oh,
in
thank
this
you.
business in this world. So thank
Yeah.
you, Pam.
Thank you too. And thank you, listeners, and thank the Lord. And I'm so happy that you joined today and go to thegigcoach.com and sign up. This is like a gold mine right here. Rick Bell is a gold mine. I mean, to be all the value that he's going to put into you to share the courses and strategies and things that you need, you can know sooner than us, when we had to work through it all, but he's going to
Hard way.
impart into you sooner and you can get started faster. So thanks again and God bless.
God bless you.